Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavjakacharya Ashtotartha Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavjakacharya Ashtotartha Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, so let's see where we're starting today. Okay, we'll be on page 85 today, studying text 19, beginning with 19. Alrighty. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 On this 19th day of September 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. Text 19. Yes, on page 85. Ya enam veti handaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau navijanito Nayam Hanti nahanyate. Ya enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hitam ubhavtau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Ya enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hitam ubhavtau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Yahenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hitam ubhavtau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Go ahead, Krishna. Yahenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hitam ubhavtau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Yahenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hitam ubhavtau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Prabhu. Yahenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hitam ubhavtau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Anyone want to chant? Go ahead, you can do. Yaenam veti hantanam yaschainam manyate hitam ubhavtau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Yahenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hitam ubhavtau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Anyone on Zoom land? No. Go ahead.
Nayanam veti hantaram
Yahenam veti hantaram
yaschainam manyate hatam
yaschainam manyate hitam
ubhavtau navijanito
ubhavtau navijanito
nayam hanti nahanyate.
nayam hanti nahanyate. Is that you, Chad?
It is. Hare Krishna.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All
Ya
right.
enam veti hantaram
Enam veti hantaram
yaschainam manyate hatam
yaschainam manyate hitam
ubhavtau na vijanito
ubhavtau navijanito
nayam hanti nahanyate.
nayam hanti nahanyate. Thank you, Mother Jalatala. Haribo. Ya, anyone who, enam, this, veti, knows, hantaram, the killer, yaha, anyone who, cha, also, enam, this, manyate, thinks, hatam, killed, ubhau, both, tau, they, na, never, vijanitaha, are in knowledge, na, never, ayam, this, hanti, kills, na, nor, hanyate, is killed. Welcome. Oh, yeah. Translation. Lord Krishna said to Arjuna, neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slays not, nor is slain. Why don't you take a hardback, because you get the right page, on page 85. No, 85, from the hardback, not from that. You won't find it. Second chapter, text 19, if you want to use that book. Purport. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from subsequent verses. Nor is the living entity killable, because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed, or is supposed to be killed, is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is ma hingsyat sarva bhutani, never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Krishna is describing, as he does in several verses here, that the soul is eternal, never born, never dies, and the body is temporary. That is the basic idea. And why is it so important for Arjuna to understand that? Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming. Because he has been put into consciousness by Krishna, covered so that Gita can be spoken, of completely identifying with his bodily, if you will, bodily relationships with the members of especially the other side, who he's going to be fighting and killing. So he has this wonderful relationship with Bhishma Dev and with Drona. Bhishma Dev, he acted as his grandfather. He helped to raise him when they were orphaned, and Pandu died untimely. And of course his teacher, Dronacharya, who trained him in military science. He has a special relationship with him. And so many others. There's a big list in the first chapter. One of the verses there describes in the purport how even Duryodhana, he felt the kinship with, because he's part of the same clan, and what to speak of so many others who were friends and relatives, you know, different marriage relatives and so forth. So this was his problem. He was identifying himself as such, which is very common in the conditioned soul. You're born into a certain family, you speak a certain language, a certain place. There's a verse that Krishna speaks on the battlefield of Kurukshetra before the war, when they all went for the solar eclipse. If you know the pastime, they all met there, you know. And he met the gopis there, and there were so many great sages came down. And Krishna was taking the role of a regular householder. He had all his queens with him and everything. And so he spoke this verse, which is often quoted. Yasyatma buddhi kunape tvidatuke swadi kalatradishu bhoma ijyadi yat tirtha buddhi salile nakarcha janesha vigyeshu abhigyeshu saeva gokaraha. Now gokaraha can mean two things. It can mean a cow or a donkey, or it can mean the donkey who carries the fodder for the cow. You know, it keeps the cow on a special position. But the point is, what he's saying there is, it's a list. Yasyatma buddhi. The word buddhi here means the conception. One who has the conception that the self, atma, is a kunape tvidatuke. Kunape means a bag, or it can mean a corpse, full of the three dhatus. You know, if you know anything about Ayurvedic medicine, you have mucus, bile, and air as the three dhatus. And they have to be in balance or you get ill. And they check the pulse amazingly. They can just, by feeling your pulse, they can find out what's wrong with you. So which one of those is really attractive? We're on page 84. 85? 85, yeah. I'm sorry. We did that one already. Yeah, we did 19. We're on page 86, sorry. So, none of them is inherently attractive. The mucus, the bile, or the air, which one is any of them attracted to? Yeah, you know? But because those are the inner constituents, right? And we have, you know, the nice young skin at a certain age, you know, and everything. So it's a complete illusion. It's Maya Devi's trick to say you get attracted. But one who identifies with that, and everyone in the material world does, you know, what means your body, which is basically a bag held up by the framework of the bones, filled with all these unmentionable substances. You know, that's really what it is, you know. But because it's animated by the presence of the soul, it can have some attraction. Whatever is attractive, we should remember, is all because of Krishna's original attraction. That's what makes anything attractive. And so we reflect a little bit of, in the youth, some attractiveness, and that completely bewilders everyone. And then there are all the other species who also, they can't be enlightened by this. But they're also basically identifying with the body that they're in. That's the basic principle. So if human beings do it, then they're no better than the animals. That's the idea. So Krishna is speaking this. So that's the first thing. Yes, yatma buddhi kundapeti dhatuke. And then there's the possessiveness. Those are things related to the body. These are mine. I have some control. I can enjoy them. Right? Swadi kalatradisha boma ejidi. And in normal course, that means you think, oh, this is my wife, this is my child, this is my home, this is my bank balance, this is my position, all that. It expands. Lord Rishabhdev, he explains that. This is the basic principle of illusion. Yanmaitanadi guhyamedi sukami tucham. Is that what it is? Yeah. Yanmaitanadi. What is it? Kanduyanena kadayori vidukha dukam. Yeah, this is another verse by Prahlad Maharaj. But this is the one that's it's leaving me now. No, not from Prahlad, but from Rishabhdev. Pungsastriya. Pungsastriya matani bhavametang tayamato vidya grantamahu. Tayamato vidya grantamahu. Oh, atagrihat kshetra sutta apta vitta janasimoho yamaham. So, aham mameti, this is the basic principle of false ego. I am this body, and the things in relationship with the body are mine. That's the mama. Aham is I, you see. So it starts with basic attraction of male and female. Pungsa striya mituni bhavameta. And when the attraction gets stronger, then there's marriage, and then you need so many other things. As soon as you get married, you need a kshetra, you need a place, a house, and the kshetra also means the job where you can support, kshetra, and then children come, huge attraction, right, and very, very important attraction and identification. So it's kshetra, sutta, apta, forgive me, I'm showing my Yiddish roots in New York. The whole mishpucha. Does that ring a bell? See, this is because you're you're not in LA and you're not in New York. So anyway, it means that the extended family. You don't, you marry someone, but you get a whole bunch of cousins, and you get a whole bunch of uncles, and you have a in-laws. So that's apta, and all of it requires vitta, money to support. So that's a big thing. And all of these put together, janasya generates moho, illusion, of false ego, character of aham mameti, I and mine. So it's a very good analysis. So it's all based on the bodily conception, but Krishna is destroying that with each verse here. Is that the body is, the previous verse, the body is temporary, antabante me deha, but the soul is permanent, right? Anashino, aprameyasa. No one, you can't measure the soul, you can't kill the soul. Therefore, fight, O Arjuna. In other words, you're just moving these souls along to the next destination, which will be much better than they are now because I'm here on the battlefield. He doesn't say that explicitly, but everyone is blessed on that battlefield because Krishna is there. And even though they die, they're going to leave. Many millions will leave their body. They'll all go to a higher destination. Even as an interpretation, it's in the Bhagavatam, that they'll all regain their original forms in the spiritual world. That has to be carefully studied. But whether it's not, they're certainly going to get another human form. They'll be purified. So he's refuting Arjuna's basic argument, and he'll continue to do that. So here he's speaking specifically about killing. No one is killing, and no one is being killed. If there's no one can be killed, then no one is killing, right? So and then the next verse is like pivotal for the whole section. This next verse 20 is worth memorizing if you're into that. The whole thing is encapsulated in this one verse, and Prabhupada has a nice long purport for this verse. So, should we go on? Najayate mriyate va kadachin. Nayam budva bhavitava nabhuyaha. Ajo nityak shastvato yam purano. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Now this second sentence may be a little puzzling. What it means is that there are no new souls coming into being right now. You know, we're as eternal as Krishna is. He's been emanating us forever. And there's no souls going out of being. There's no destruction for the soul. Cannot be destroyed. So the soul is not coming. He has not come into being at any time. He existed eternally. Will not come into being, and will not. New ones won't come into being in the future. That's what the second line. The other is self-explanatory. Purport: qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or the kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes birth from the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time. The second one is, it grows, then remains for some time, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. So you see like these little children growing up here. You know, we have a couple of wonderful families. And I swear, to me, every week they look a little like they're shooting up, you know. Especially Gaurkeshuva's kids. And Gaurangi, you know, she's also getting mobile, you know, she's growing. So that's the growth. They're born, they're growing, and then you stay for some time. And during that time, you usually have children, so you're producing, you know. And then eventually, old age, you dwindle and you disappear. That's the 6. Birth, growth, maintenance, dwindling, and death. Birth, growth, remaining, producing byproducts, dwindling, and death. So, the soul, however, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, at last vanishes. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad 1-18, we find a similar passage which reads, Najayate mriyate vavapaschin nayam kutaschin nababuva kaschit ajo nikyak shasvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Exact same last 2 lines. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse there is one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds, or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is therefore daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of the Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, Vibhu Atma. This is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 1-20 in this way. Anoraniyan mahato mahiyan atmasya janto nihito guhayam tamakratu pashyati vita shoko dhatu prasadan mahimanam atmanaha. Both the super soul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being. And only one who has become free from all material desires, as well as lamentations, can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Close quote. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. So this is such an important verse, and it has, as quoted, we see it's like an Upanishadic verse. The Gītā is sometimes known as the Gītā Upanishad, because it contains all the essential knowledge from the Upanishads. And you'll find verses like this which have a little different feel to them, a little different meter. And this is one of them that's clearly practically identical to the Katha Upanishad verse. So, for the soul there is never birth nor death at any time. And this is so, it's alien to us to understand that, because we can just remember our own life. I don't remember anything from the past life. I don't know anybody who does. How can you be so sure? I remember back in the 70s when we were producing all kinds of books, Prabhupada's books, but there were also some books that were written by devotees and quoted Prabhupada extensively. And one of them was, as you're probably familiar with it, a book called Coming Back, which focuses on this basic truth, the eternality of the soul and the reality of karma and reincarnation, transmigration of the soul. There is a problem that always comes up in religion in general, and that is, it's called the problem of evil, or there's a whole field of theology called theodicy, which deals with this problem. And that is, okay, you say there's a God who's very merciful and all-powerful, then why does he allow the innocent to suffer? Here's this little baby here, and we know sometimes horrible things happen. They get diseases or some bomb, whatever. It happens everywhere. And what about me? I mean, I go to church, every week and everything, and then I came down with a cancer, or, my best friend or my relative. Why are these innocent people suffering? If God is so merciful and so just and so all-powerful. Yeah, that's a problem. It's only a problem if you don't accept reincarnation and karma. You say, oh, the innocent children, and of course, children should be protected, don't get me wrong. But factually speaking, every living entity who's born, especially in the human form, there's a whole history. The soul has a history of different embodiments. And you're carrying your karma with you. And that karma, good or bad, will be played out in this body. If you don't take the Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness can eradicate karma, can change it. Otherwise, you have a certain amount of program. There's a verse Prabhupada would always quote. The verses that Narada Muni speaks to Vyasadeva in the 5th chapter of the 1st canto, where he's convincing him to write the final work, Bhagavatam. One of them has this principle. If you like, you can sit on the bench or whatever. There's more books. There's a book over here for you. Right there. No? Okay. Okay. So it goes like this. Tassaiva heto prayate kovido nalabhite yad brahmatam upayata talabhite dukkavadanya kaksukam kalina sarvata gabhira rangasa. You're going to need a stand. Give him a stand. Okay, sit on the bench. Good. So what he's saying there, tasyaiva heto prayate kovido. An intelligent person should strive for that end, which you cannot achieve from going the top of this universe to the highest planet down to the lowest. Heto prayate. The word prayate means strive with all your might. You know, yati yate. Tasyaiva heto. Heto here means a goal. Prayate kovido nalabhite yad brahmatam upaya. Brahmatam means wandering. Upayada, up and down the universes, up and down the species. You know. Talabhite dukkavadanya kaksukam. As far as your material destiny goes, you have a certain amount of happiness and misery plugged in due to your karma. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, you'll have a certain amount of money. You can be quite poor and be quite happy and satisfied. You can be very rich and be miserable. Mostly are, you know. So that's not it, but a certain amount of happiness, a certain amount of distress. So there's no point in really working hard and worrying about how can I, protect myself against all this stuff. It's kind of plugged in. Then what should you strive for? Krishna consciousness. That will solve all the problems because it will end your entrapment within this cycle of birth and death, which is all due to fruitive activity. As soon as you have selfish activity, and it can be extended to family or even to country, whatever, you know, but it's bodily based, then you're making new karma that's going to bring you back again. You may think you're doing very good, but you're committing all kinds of sin, even unknowingly, you know. Let's go shopping. We'll go to. I like to tell the story. I was around when McDonald's first came on the scene. I think it was in 1960, something like that. I used to go bowling every Saturday at this one place, and suddenly there was this McDonald's went up. You know, I said, "Oh, okay, we'll get a, burger and fries before we go bowling, or after it, I forget." You know, it was just a thing. And I live across from a McDonald's now. I'm never going in there. But that's how regular it is. People don't know they're creating such dangerous future for themselves. So ignorance is the greatest danger, is the worst thing. And that's why Prabhupada so much stressed the books. From a little knowledge, you can reshape your life so that you're doing a thing that's auspicious for your future. Rather than just obeying the demands of the mind and the senses. So this is essential nature, and the fact that there's no birth and no death for the soul. So that means there's transmigration. Now back to the Coming Back book. In that Coming Back book, they quoted various empirical evidence for the transmigration of the soul. Just at that time in the 70s, I don't know if maybe previously in previous decades, but there were a lot of books being written. Near-death experiences that people were having in hospitals, and the doctors would record, yes. And somehow they knew just what doctor came in to treat them and get their heart beating again, because they were looking down from above. One of our own sannyasis, I got on dandabats.com. It's a very nice site, many of you know. And Sachinandan Swami, and he was giving a Zoom call, and this was a record of it, and there was pictures there of like 12, 15 people were doing, and most of it he was telling the story of his own near-death experience, how he had been in the hospital, he had some infection in the stomach or something, they did an operation, but they kind of didn't do it perfectly or something, and there was a crisis, and and he was in agonizing pain, and they put him on, and then suddenly he was not in any pain, and he was floating above, and he was watching all the stuff going on. He had it, and he was credible, very credible, obviously. So why is that important? Because people, if you hear that, if you're completely science-oriented and you think everything is empirical, this can fascinate you. I'm sure he's dead by now. He was a professor of psychology, I think it was, somewhere in like Tennessee or Kentucky or something like that, Ian Stevenson. And he had heard that somehow, mostly in India, but not solely in India, but mostly in India, young kids sometimes say, no, you're not my real mother, you know. My real mother was named this, and we lived in this town, and it's usually like 50 miles away. It's not like, you know, over across the... And I don't know what they do, you know, but he went to investigate these, and he actually went to the other town and said, is there somebody like this? Yes, there was a lady like that who died, you know, and she had a little son, you know, whatever, you know. So he confirmed he had even a whole chapter in the book about, you know, 20 cases that can be explained really only with reincarnation. So this kind of empirical evidence, you know, it's not something that's conclusive, but it can intrigue someone to investigate more. And in India, it's a given, isn't it? Who doesn't believe? I mean, maybe now the Western ideas are getting more prominent, but it's like a given. Otherwise, why do millions and millions of people gather for the Magh Mela, the Kumbh Mela, right? Liberation. We can get liberation if we bathe at the right time and in the confluence, right? Isn't it all about that? You know. So people have faith, and it's real. So having faith in this should change our whole perspective of what to strive for in life. What should we strive? It's absolutely foolishness to strive for some material thing, material success. You know, the dream. Oh, I want to be a billionaire. You know, and this and that, or at least a millionaire. You know, whatever. But it's a tragic waste of human life. And that's what this movement is all about, is that giving the knowledge so that people can at least try to become Krishna conscious. Because a little advancement on this path is never lost and protects one from the greatest danger, which is what? Who remembers from last night? Yes, losing the human form of life. If you just do a little, if you chant Hare Krishna one time, a couple of times, then, you know, that's in your bank account, your spiritual bank account. And it'll bring you back. You have to chant in the next life. Krishna will give you a human form of life. So this is very, you know, he really hammers it home. What's the difference between Nitya and Shasvata? One is eternal, the other is permanent. I don't know. He's just hammering home. Unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. Not slain when the body is slain. The body is slain, you know, figuratively or literally. You're on the battlefield, it can be slain. But we're all slain, some disease, accident, whatever it is, you know, old age. But we're not going to die. As I like to say, forgive me, every body dies, right? Everybody dies. Nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body or pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. And what is life's goal? No more births, no more death. Spiritual world, spiritual life, eternal, full of bliss, full of knowledge. Okay. Yes, please.
Haribol. I think I might have mentioned something about the lamentation, but just going back to that, you know, it says, one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentations. Mm-hmm. So now, can you kind of like just briefly go over to like what's the difference between like just the, like obviously like regular lamentation, losing, you know, a person not having that understanding that somebody's, you know, going to reincarnate and that the soul never dies, and then the lamentation that, you know, for like the prime example, Lord Chaitanya, you know, lamenting for Jagannath and, you know, the separation anxiety and all this, you know, like what is, you know, is that transcendental lamentation? What? How do we you know, come to terms with this understanding here?
Yeah, in the 18th chapter, I think it's text 54. There's a famous verse about coming to the Brahman platform, transcending the three modes of nature and the bodily concept of life, and it's exactly presented. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samaksa veshibhutesu madbhaktim labate param. So Krishna is describing a state, and before that he describes how to, and basically it's austerities and meditation. One can transcend the modes of nature, the bodily concept of life. And the first benefit is prasannatma. One awakens the natural bliss of the soul. In other words, we should always remember, we're naturally meant to be happy all the time, full of bliss. But that's covered because we've forgotten our real nature. But then there's the phrase nashochati and the kankshati, and that's exactly what you're talking about. In the material life, you have it's characterized by this lamentation and hankering. You're hankering and lamenting. We hanker for things we don't have, we want, we think it'll make us happy, and that itself is miserable. You can't get it. But then if you do get it, and then you lose it, then there's lamentation. There's a wonderful verse, I chanted this many times, from Prahlad's teachings, his prayers to his Nrsimhadev. Okay. Yasmat priya priya viyoga sayoga janma shokagnina sakalayona shadahyamana dukkha shadam tatapi dukkha matadhyaham bhuman brahmami vadameta badasya yogam. So it's a wonderful verse. So yasmat, from this phenomena in the material world, priya, apriya, viyoga, samyoga. So priya, the things that are dear to us, just by nature, our bodies, our families, our health, our money, there's a whole list, things that we really are attached to, that are essential to, you know. So when one or more of those is taken away or even threatened, this is a source of great unhappiness. And he said, Yasma priyapi yoga si yoga janma shokagnina, means a fire of lamentation when these things are taken away. Or when horrible things, like these floods in Libya or this flame, you know, there's so many things, are forced upon us. You can't do anything, the threefold miseries, right? That's another source of lamentation. So the material hankering inevitably results in lamentation. Either you can't get what you're looking for, or you get it and then it's taken away eventually. You know, so that's what material life is all about. On the spiritual side, that this is very healthy. In other words, this is ideal. This is the highest level. Lord Chaitanya, we know those last years in Puri, he was always lamenting in separation. Yugaitam nameshena shakshusha pravashaitam shunyaitam jagatsarvam govinda videhe name. Every moment drags on like 1,000,000 years or more. From the rain clouds of my eyes, the tears in torrents pour. This whole creation is nothing but a vast and joyless void. Oh, Govinda, by your absence, I am being destroyed. So it's paradoxical. It's the most intense lamentation, and he showed, you know, his associates were always trying to comfort him, you know, and chant to him and try to, you know, give him the presence of Krishna. But you know, externally it looks like the greatest misery, but really it's the greatest happiness, because the more intensely we are feeling and thinking of Krishna, the more bliss will be in, even if it looks like pain. It's like the gopis in the rasa dance. It's a mixture of great pain and great ecstasy, isn't it? Krishna starts out, he attracts them in the flute, and they're so in anxiety to meet him, right? They don't even dress themselves right, and they run out, you know the story. So then they all assemble there, and what happens? You know, he plays it, you know, he teases him. Says, oh, so now how can I help you? It's so nice you came out. Did you come to see the forest? Yeah. But you better be careful. There's dangerous animals out here, you know, but you should go back. Plus, adulterous affairs are not good, you know, you can't go to heaven, so it's very bad. So they start scratching their toes on the floor. Tears are coming down. And they have a song that they sing, you know, which is interesting because I worked on it, you know. The first line of that song, I forget the Sanskrit, but it says, you should not speak so cruelly, Krishna. You know, these cruel words. It's exactly the same line that the Brahmins' wives speak when they come out. You know, they're also violating everything by running out to the forest to meet Krishna. You know, these chaste wives of the Brahmins, but they're really in love with Krishna. But the gopis won't go back. They have a song of surrender that is, you know, very famous, and they convince him there that, you know, okay, let's do the rasa dance, you know. But then, you know, they start strolling along, you know, but they become very proud, or the most proud, you know, we alone have Krishna's company. Boom, he disappears to get rid of that pride, you know. But he goes with Radharani, you know, and then she gets a little proud too, and she's left alone. So it's all of this, and then they have this incredible song of separation. They're so mad in love with him that they enact his pastimes You know, they really think they are Krishna. It's an incredible theme. And finally they go to the bank of the river Yamuna and they sing this song of separation. Jayati te dikam janmana brajak shrayate indra shashwaratrahi and dayate dvishitam dikshutavakas prahitvitasavas tram dachinvate. That's the first verse. It's kind of like a chorus. This land of Vrindavan has become so auspicious. The goddess of fortune is living here ever since you appeared here. Jayati te janmana vrajak shrayate indra shashwad. Indra is the goddess of fortune. Oh, beloved, please show yourself to us. You are sustaining our lives. We've come out, you know. Anyway, it goes on like that. And they sing this song of separation. And finally he reappears. So in that song of separation, there's all of this anxiety and longing, you know, and this, but it's healthy because it's fixated on Krishna and is producing the highest bliss. It looks like misery, just like Lord Chaitanya. He would, you know, sometimes he would rub his face against the wall and the gambhira, and the blood would come, and you know, his associates would be hurt by that.
Passing out.
But he was experiencing the highest possible ecstasy. So that's healthy, just like this greed, you know. Greed is something that you want to avoid, right? If you're greedy for money, then that's really the mode of ignorance. But greed is the only price to pay for the highest ecstasy of Krishna. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavatamattir, for your mind to be absorbed in the Krishna Bhakti Rasa, you know. This is Ramananda Roy writes this verse. It's quoted by Rupa in his Pajavali. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavatamati Kriyatam Yadikatopi Labhyate Tatta Laulyam Api Mulyamekalam Janmakoti Sukatayana Labhyate. He says this greed for, what is Krishna Bhakti? Prabhupada translated that first line as Krishna consciousness. That's where the phrase Krishna consciousness. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati, your mind, mati, absorbed in the rasa of Krishna Bhakti. You know, that's what Krishna consciousness. So this is so valuable, you should buy it if you can, you know, pay for it. You know, what's the price? Your greed for it. So that's, I don't have it now. I long for that. That's a longing, that's an anxiety. But there is, yes, there is healthy anxiety when it's focused on Krishna. Otherwise, it's just mode of ignorance. So it's paradoxical. But this is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So the highest thing in the spiritual world are these adulterous affairs, you know, so-called with the gopis, some married, some unmarried. But that's the lowest thing in this world. You know, it's unfaithfulness.
I just had a couple more comments, real quick. So the conditioned souls are lamenting over material loss because they don't realize that it's Krishna's mercy. That they lose that,
yeah,
that they're losing that.
Definitely don't realize it.
But then I also wanted to say something about the reincarnation. Like, so the worst thing could be like reincarnating and then coming into back onto this material existence as an animal. But also, like, even if we reincarnate as a human, like it's said that it's guaranteed once you practice bhakti that you're guaranteed a human form. But that doesn't necessarily mean, or does it mean that you will come into Krishna consciousness? Because I think I was reading, I can't remember which book, but it says somewhere around 95% of the souls that are on this plane don't know about Krishna. So
yeah, well,
there's always that chance that you won't find Krishna, right?
No,
like
well, no, because that's what it means that there's no loss. Is that somehow or other, you know, Krishna will put you in a situation where you'll have another chance to take up Krishna consciousness. And you begin from where you left off. So that you know, that's unique. Anything material obviously is lost when the body is lost. You know, and to become, you know, a millionaire, billionaire, you know, you got to step on so many toes, so you're probably not going to be so well situated. Yeah. So it's really just, you know, you don't know where you're going. That's the thing. But in Krishna consciousness, at least. This is because the progress is in the spirit. In other words, your soul has made some advancement.
I see.
And that you don't lose. Just like the soul doesn't die, the soul doesn't get injured. You know, you can't. So similarly, your spiritual assets are preserved, and you get the second chance. But do you really want to prolong your life in this world? I mean, come on. Let's get serious about getting out. I mean, even on the material level. These may be the last decent days when you can go down to Sprouts and get some sprouts. You know, I mean, the whole food chain is being ruined. Everything is, seriously. So there should be, that should be an impetus to try to complete the course.
We also only have 9,500 years of the golden age.
Yes, there is that. Yeah.
Haribol.
So, all right, let's see what time. Oh, it's late. All right, where are we? We're on text 21. All right, we'll do this one. Veda vinashinam nityam yahenam jamabhyam katam sapurusha parta kangata yatihantikam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Purport. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace, now this, we're going to try to change this because this is the only place in books where this phrase appears, justice of the peace, and it's because there's some justice spoken of in the rest of it. But the justice of the peace cannot condemn anyone. They marry people, right? So I'm going to change it here. I hope I don't get into trouble. Although the High Court judge awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the judge of the High Court judge cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In the Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice. And thus Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for justice, that was in the original manuscript, is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to secure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction. So this is, Krishna has an airtight argument here, getting Arjuna to fight, but he's not ready to fight until he speaks the whole Bhagavad Gita. All right, time for a few poems. Do we have time? Yes. Okay. I say 8:07. Yeah. Okay, so many of you haven't heard this one before, but it's a key verse that Lord Chaitanya speaks, and I think it's attributed to Madhavendra Puri, about how the soul, when he wakes up, when his intelligence becomes purified, then he can get the spiritual strength to control the senses and actually progress in devotional service. It says, Kama dinang katina katita padita durni deshas tesham jata mayina kaduna nattapano prashanti utsrijayatan atiyatupate sampratam labdha buddhis tvamayata kshadanam abhayam mam niyungsvatmadasye. In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy. Yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. It's the whole intelligence. Intelligence is strengthened by hearing Bhagavad Gita, and following it, association, and then you could control the Lord and cast out all these demands of your non-Krishna conscious self. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. We'll do another one tomorrow. Okay. Oh, and we're going to come on this nice verse 22. Giving up the body like an old coat. Taking on a new one. Okay. Hare Krishna.